Hello museum families, and welcome to RBCM at Home Kids. The previous sessions are recorded and you can find them on our Royal BC Museum YouTube page. My name is Chris O'Connor and I'm a learning program developer at the Royal BC Museum. The museum and my home is on the territory of the Lekwungen speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, here in Victoria on Vancouver Island. I'm an uninvited guest on this territory and grateful to live, learn, and raise a family on this land. And I recommend everyone looks up the app Native Lands. This app will tell you what Indigenous lands you're on. It's important that wherever we step, we know where we are. So today we're traveling north. From where I am at the bottom of Vancouver Island, I would travel hours and hours, probably in a car, to the very top of Vancouver Island. And then I'd travel by boat many more hours further up the coast to Heiltsuk territory, to Bella Bella. It's an absolute honor to have as our guest, Jess Housty. Jess is a Heiltsuk mother, writer, and land-based educator living in her homelands in the community of Bella Bella. She is the Executive Director of Qqs Project Society, a Heiltsuk charitable nonprofit focused on supporting youth and families to thrive through community and cultural programming. She works in community organizing, food systems resiliency, and decolonial philanthropy through a variety of consulting and volunteer positions within her community and in the wider world. Jess is also a contributor with an essay called Kinship to a recent book put out by the Royal BC Museum, Spirits of the Coast, Orcas and Science, Art, and History. This book is a companion piece to the Orcas exhibition that will open in May. So thank you so much for being here, Jess. It's, like I said, it's a real honor to have you here and to finally get a chance to hear you, and so we talked about this session being generally of land-based learning. So we can so I'll just let you, wherever you would like to take that in terms of, but it may be a question in terms of what does that mean to you? What does land-based learning mean to you? And also at some point, I'm curious what the idea of kinship, or that word of kinship, what that means to you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to share my screen because I have some nice photos that I think people might like to see. Can you see this okay?
Not yet, but looks like it's about to. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, cool. Wonderful. Yeah, I'm happy to share about those things. Thank you so much for inviting me to do so. A little bit about who I am to start off with. Thank you for that really lovely introduction. When people ask me what my job is, I have a really hard time answering, but I'm really lucky that I get to do lots of things that I love and care really deeply about. My Heiltsuk name is ÇuWaGiLau. My borrowed name is Jess Housty. I am of Heiltsuk and mixed settler ancestry, and I was born and raised in my Heiltsuk homelands in Bella Bella. I'm really proud to be raising two little Heiltsuk babies here in their homelands as well. I have two sons who are 3 and 5 years old, and my work gives me the opportunity to be involved in all sorts of different things that are happening both around Bella Bella and up and down the coast, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. A little bit about our homelands. I don't know how many people who are listening to this call have heard of Bella Bella or know where Bella Bella is, but I know that often when I'm away in the city or in other places and I tell people where I'm from, usually people don't have a really good sense of where we are. But if you look at the map, you can see that we're on the outer central coast of BC. Our territory stretches from the mainland through all of the outer coastal islands and out to open ocean. And, you know, before contact, originally there were more than 10,000 Heiltsuk people who lived across our territory, we think. We don't have an exact number, but after contact and in the last couple of 100 years, our numbers dwindled to fewer than 200. And today we have a membership of about 2,500 Heiltsuk people, a little more than half of them living in Bella Bella. This is a picture of Bella Bella that I really love. It's not from today, it's from last winter. We don't have any snow right now. We're still in the middle of our windstorms. But Bella Bella is really close to the ocean. You know, when I walk out the door of my house, it's a really short walk down the path to the beach, so I can take my kids, you know, hunting in the tidal pools. We had a really wild windstorm yesterday where it was blowing, you know, more than 100 kilometers an hour. And I sat in my office looking out at the water and the high tide, watching waves crashing almost right up to the windows of my office. So where we live, we definitely feel like we're really close to the lands and waters. They're right there. When people talk about Bella Bella, they often focus on how far away it is from places like Vancouver or Victoria or other big urban spaces. But for me, you know, it's the center of my universe. So I don't tend to focus on what we're far away from. I focus on what we're close to. And I really love being in a place where the lands and waters and everything they contain are right there. And I could be standing in my kitchen washing my dishes and, you know, watch a humpback whale surface right out the window. It's really beautiful and really magical to live in a place where there's so much wilderness all around you. And it's so easy to slip into those spaces where you can forget about all the stress and pressure of school and work and being in community and just take a deep breath and be out on the land. So I'm very lucky to have that. I want to share a little bit about Heiltsuk culture. We're really fortunate that our culture is so strong and vibrant and alive. Our culture teaches us as Heiltsuk people how to be in relationship with the lands and waters and all of the things they contain. My culture is what teaches me about the importance of respect for my environment, for animals, for the species that I rely on. It teaches me about reciprocity and the need to give back as much as my homelands give to me. And we have a system of Heiltsuk laws and customs and ceremonies and teachings that really reinforce the importance of living in harmony with our homelands, of knowing them really well, and of being able to protect them and protect them. And we have a lot of really incredible knowledge and stories that our ancestors have passed down for thousands and thousands of years that teach us how to be our best Heiltsuk selves when we're out on the territory. We're really lucky that those systems are still intact, because in a lot of places, colonization and residential schools and other really big, scary challenges have really seriously impacted how intact people's culture feels to them, how intact their language feels to them. And I'm really proud of how many people in my community carry their culture really strongly and help to teach it to other people. And so a lot of the teachings that I hold that guide how I interact with my lands and waters are things that we reinforce in the context of a potlatch or a ceremony or a big house, which is what you can see pictured on my screen here. You can see in the right-hand image, community members who are gathered and a line of chiefs sitting to the left of the fire. And these pictures come from the opening of the big house. It was the first Heiltsuk big house to be raised in our community in living memory when we opened it last fall. And when we gather in the big house and we are singing our songs and telling our stories and sharing the meaning behind our names and the laws and customs that guide what we're doing, all of that is teaching and reinforcing those practices that teach us how to be Heiltsuk. And so when I think about how I can be my best Heiltsuk self, a lot of how I learned that comes through my cultural teachings. But we also build those connections in other places, like out on the land, because I've definitely learned in my life that our territory is a teacher in and of itself. I was so lucky when I was a kid to be able to spend so much time outside. I got to grow up in canoes and on boats and hiking and camping and fishing and gathering medicines and picking berries. I felt more at home out in the woods than I ever did indoors. And so as I have grown up and tried to forge a path for myself and figure out what I want to do with my life, what's become really important to me is helping to build that same kind of connection for other young people. And I get to do it by getting outside with them, which is really amazing. What I love about that kind of connection to our territory and the idea of land-based learning, which is really just getting outside and seeing where that takes you, seeing what kind of magic happens when you just allow yourself to be in another space. What I love is that, I can walk into any place in my territory and I feel safe and I feel connected and I feel confident. I know that everything I need is right around me. And I feel so much joy that I can't wait to share with other people who are with me. And so at the root of the work that I do for my day job is really just trying to give that gift to other people, and especially other kids and families, because everybody deserves to have a space where they feel that kind of joy and confidence and connection. And so, to me, I think that's the most important work I can imagine doing.
I was sorry, Jess, if I can jump in just for a second, because you were mentioning reciprocity earlier into the land, but it sounds like also reciprocity in terms of like sharing learning and sharing knowledge, so that you were receiving that, and now do you feel that when did that, was there a moment where that sort of shifted and you realized that it was important to then like be on the other end of that, or was it always sort of interspersed, that idea of receiving knowledge and sharing knowledge out?
I can't really remember a time when that didn't feel true for me. I mean, I remember when I was a little kid getting to spend so much time with, my grandparents and elders and knowledge holders out on the land and feeling so grateful to receive the teachings that they shared with me. And it just seemed to make sense that those were not my things to hold and to hoard and to keep to myself, but those were gifts that I'd been given that I could then give to other people without losing anything myself. And so, one of the things that I love about our systems of knowledge and the way we help to take care of each other is just the generosity that comes from helping to kindle those connections with other people too.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So here are some photos from my homelands, and I would invite you right now as you have a look at these photos and then maybe close your eyes and think about a place where you feel really safe and really happy and really powerful, a place where everything makes sense for you and everything feels really possible. And it might not look like my place. It might be a soccer field or a beach somewhere, or it might be your grandma's kitchen table. What matters most is that it's the place that makes you feel good, and it's a place that makes you feel like your best self, a place where you're you. And think about what happens to your body when you're in places like that, and think about what happens to your brain and your heart. For me, that place is my homelands. And it's just about any place in my homelands, right? There's so many places you can go. I can just walk out the door to the beach and I feel it. I can hike and trek and boat for hours and feel it. But when I'm in those places, when I'm out there, I have so much energy and so much joy. And it feels like I'm so wide open and so connected. And it's just such an incredible, beautiful thing. And everybody deserves to have a place like that. And it can look like whatever makes sense for you. And I know sometimes when people are thinking about the work that I do and the place that I live, sometimes it can be hard for them to imagine it because it's so different from the reality of where they are. But I think when we think about the things that make us feel whole and the things that make us feel really good, that's a really good window into how I feel when I'm out on the land. So I just wanted to share that little exercise with you.
It's interesting, Jess, when I closed my eyes, I saw the tide pools down by Clover Point in Victoria. So even within the city, and that the sea anemones there are not as big as the ones that are in the picture that you have. Yeah, so the tide pools wherever can be like definitely a place of possibility. So yeah.
Those those tide pools are really special to me. I lived in Victoria for a little while when I was in high school, and when I went to university, and I would go and sit by those tide pools at Clover Point when I needed to feel like I was a little bit closer to home.
Oh yeah, great.
I want to share a little bit about some of the work that I do and what it actually really looks like. Most of my work is really just about getting kids outside, which means that I have like the best job ever. In the summertime, what I spend a lot of time working on is a camp. It's called the Quay River Youth Camp, where we take kids from Bella Bella, sometimes Heiltsuk kids who live in other places and come home in the summertime. And we bring them out on the land to a watershed called Quay, which is about 30 miles south of Bella Bella by boat. We bring them up there for 5 or 6 days at a time, and we do it 5 or 6 times a year. And they just be in that place. It's an ancestral village site. So when we're there, we know that we're walking in places where our ancestors walked, and we're living in places where our ancestors lived. And when we think about how we structure our days down there, we're really focused on trying to give our young people different perspectives on that place. So first and foremost, we want to give them a cultural lens. You know, we have a beautiful big house down in Quay where the kids do cultural programming. You can see a picture of them in their masks. And you know, they learn the language, they learn genealogy, family history, they learn our stories, songs, dances, ceremonies. They get to be out on the land harvesting traditional foods and medicines and learning to be self-reliant in the place where our ancestors were always self-reliant. And then on the other side, we also teach them a little bit about science, and we invite some of our science partners who do research and monitoring work in the territory to come out and join us on the land there, so that our kids can experience another lens on their territory. They can understand things like bear behavior and ecology and cetaceans and, you know, all sorts of scientific ways of understanding what's around them as well. And that's important for us because we know that there are so many things that are impacting our territory, whether it's industries like logging and fishing, or, you know, really big, messy, scary things like climate change. And we know that as Heiltsuk people, this is where we come from. We don't come from anywhere else. We can't just pick up and leave and be somewhere else and still be Heiltsuk. Like, we're tied to the place that we come from. It's where our ancestors have always lived. It's a place that our ancestors have always taken care of. And so we want to make sure that we're raising generations of young people who have every tool available to them in their toolbox to protect the places they care about. And so that's one of the reasons why we like to think about science sometimes in the context of the work that we do out on the land. And so the really neat thing is that kids can go out to a camp that's focused on bears, for example, and they can learn creation stories as old as their first generation of Heiltsuk people that are about bears, and teach them about our relationship to bears and how they are our relatives and our kin. They can learn language and vocabulary in Heiltsuk about bears. They can learn ceremonies and songs and stories. They can walk in places where bears walk. You can see on the right of the screen this little stomp trail where a bear has stepped in the same place so many times that it's actually left permanent imprints in the moss. And the kids get to see all sides. They get to see all of the ways of looking at what's around them. And I think that's just a really incredible thing.
How long has that camp been running for?
22 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh. So I imagine that especially if kids are coming back year after year, then their learning just gets deeper and deeper too. So.
Yeah, and you know what? Once upon a time, I was a camper. And if you look at who's running our programs today, almost all of them started off as campers. We even have like second generation campers coming out now whose parents were campers, and now they're coming out too, which is a lot of fun. So that's what we do a lot of in the summertime, but we also keep doing that kind of work in the winter, and we do it through partnerships in the community. I'm really, really proud of an incredible program that we have in Bella Bella called Cs, which stands for Supporting Emerging Aboriginal Stewards. This is a really fantastic program that in Bella Bella is led by our community school. And I am really excited and proud to come from a community where our school believes in the power of our lands and waters to be a teacher, and believes in the importance of community knowledge holders who can help our students to build a really strong sense of connection to their territory. And our school values that kind of learning just as much as textbook learning. And I think that's the way it should be. So imagine that sometimes, you're in your classroom doing math, but sometimes you're hiking through the muskeg and you're gathering tea plants for elders. And sometimes you might be in like a foods and nutrition class, but sometimes you might be with elders and fishermen learning how to catch and clean a salmon and how to smoke it and preserve it. And so there's so much incredible work and skill building and leadership development that happens through the Cs program just by taking kids out on the land and making sure that they have that incredible sense of confidence that comes from being out on the territory and knowing what's around you and knowing who you are in that space. And all of those activities, whether it's traditional academia or land-based learning, they're all valued because all of those things make you more skilled and connected. So, it's work that we carry on year round. It looks a little bit different in the summer versus the winter. And these are just two examples of the kind of work that we do that tries to get youth and families out on the land. But at the heart of it, land-based learning is really just a fancy word for getting people outside and inviting them to take a really deep breath and feel where they are and see what they can learn by being there and observing what's around them and being with other people who love that place too. So what's really cool about this is that we know it works. We know it leads to good things. I mean, I mentioned that I was a camper once. I grew up out on the land. I got to participate in programs like this, and now it's my whole job to support things like this. For me, being able to do this kind of work when I was young gave me purpose and really guided me to the work that I do now, because I knew how much it meant to me to be able to be out on the land, be out on the water, feel who I was in that place, value the things that I learned there. I know how much that influenced me throughout my life. And it felt like the biggest gift that I could possibly give to other people to help them have that sense of connection too. And so I think there's so much value in getting to experience things like that, because you never know where it's going to lead you. And, all of the young people who grew up doing programs like this, grew up out on the land, finished high school, some of them went on to university. They're running our programs now. They're running our camps. They're running the Cs program. They're teaching in our school. They're working at our stewardship office. They are taking the things they learned out on the land when they were young and taking the love that they learned out on the land when they were young and using that to empower them as just incredible leaders who are making really amazing change and beyond. So I think that's pretty amazing. I think that, young people who get to be out on the land and do things like this seriously change the world. So I'm grateful I got to be one of them, and I'm grateful I get to share a little bit about what that looked like for me.
I'm just looking at that middle slide and thinking just around language. Can you talk a little bit more about how language plays a role within land-based learning?
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about our Heiltsuk language, so much of how it's structured and so much of things like place names and the names that we carry as Heiltsuk people, they're not words with simple definitions. Lots of times they're stories. Our names that we carry link us to specific places in the territory. Often the place names that we have for the places around us, the name of a mountain or the name of an inlet, those often come from stories. And so through our language and through our stories, we understand the things that are around us as our relatives. They're our family. So when I think about Mount Keys, which I can see from my window, that's a relative. That's like a living being that I feel like I have a relationship to and an obligation to take care of. And part of my sense of connection to that mountain comes through our language and stories. And that sort of relationship is at play when I think about killer whales and grizzly bears and inlets that I love and bodies of water and forests. And so for me, I'm not a fluent speaker of my language. I'm learning, and it's going to be a long learning journey for me because it's a beautiful, complicated language. But I know that reclaiming our language and learning it is part of how I can learn to think like an ancestor, and I can learn new ways of making all of those values that are embedded in our language and culture real in my life.
And sorry, if it's okay, I just ask a question that came in from Mark Brown, who's a teacher at Monterey Middle School here in Victoria. And they actually, Mark runs a ocean studies program. So they get out on the water and do other things as well that are connected to some of the issues you're talking about. He is wondering if that collectively going out into nature is one thing, but are kids also encouraged to go out on their own and spend time out in nature on their own?
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to create every possible opportunity we can for kids and families to get outside. And so sometimes it happens through things like our Quake Camp or our Seas program, where they might be going out in a big group with other campers, or as a field trip with their class. We also run family programs where we bring 2 or 3 or 4 or sometimes even 5 generations of the same family all out on the land together to do activities like harvesting and preparing food. And my hope is certainly that as kids spend more time out there and become more confident, learn technical skills like how to run a boat and how to, account for the weather and how to navigate, that they'll feel more and more confident as time goes on to experience that place on their own and to take other people and become the leaders who are helping other people to connect with those places too.
Great, thank you. Is that your last slide there, or do you have another slide?
That's it, sorry.
Oh, do you want to stop sharing your screen and then we can make our heads look bigger? So thank you so much. With that, just a little bit of a sense of what it's like for both your journey of both from being a youth and now in working with youth, but then also just like generations and generations of connection to the land. So I feel like I get at least like speak for myself, get a little sense of what it's like to be in Bella Bella. I was near Bella Bella, I was in the Nass Valley last October, and it was incredible just to be up that way. It felt like a whole other world. So so thank you for bringing us there today. So Karina, just maybe as a last question, Karina Miller, the educator down here in Victoria, asks, can Jess talk a little bit about kinship, how mountains and bears are family members? How does she define family?
Yeah, it might be a little bit complicated to explain because I think, it's just so normal for me the way we grew up here. But when you grow up hearing really old stories that are like thousands and thousands of years old, in which animals sometimes have the ability to transform between human and animal form, when we had the language to speak to each other, when we began to form relationships with each other and obligations to one another, all of that is embedded in the stories that teach us about who we are as Heiltsuk people. And so for me, in a very real way, I feel like wolves are my cousins, because when I think about my grandmother's creation story and the moment in time when that common ancestor gave birth to both my family's, descendants and the descendants of wolves, that's a very real moment in our history that is part of what makes me who I am, and part of the system of knowledge and teachings that is the basis of who I am. And the thing that I really love about it is that, hopefully you want to take care of your family. You want to value your family and respect them and love them. And when I think about my territory and my lands and waters as being a real living place that I have a relationship with, and when I think about mountains and forests and all of the animals they contain as being my cousins, my brothers, my sisters, that for me creates a sense of obligation to treat them well and treat them with respect, take care of them, and to know that they take care of me too. And so for me, that's just a real part of how I interact with everything that's around me.
Thank you. And I said that was the last question, but there's one more question, which I think is I'm really interested about as well. So it's Division 9, and I think this is Central Middle School, unless this is another Division 9. So shout out to Central Middle School and Alison Balaba. We have been learning some little words about education and how we learn. Are there words in Heiltsuk about learning?
Yeah, there are. I'll share one example, which is, when I was showing pictures from Qqs, where we run a lot of our programs in the summer, you saw pictures of the children in their masks and their blankets outside the big house. When we built that big house for them down in Qqs, we wanted to give them an appropriate space to learn and practice their culture, the way their ancestors would have. And when we asked our elders what we should call that big house, we were going to give it a name. The late Pops Ed Martin, who was one of our camp elders, the name he suggested that we give the big house was tä And tä means completing the circle of knowledge. And so for him, he felt like that was a place where, learning was not just a linear thing where a piece of knowledge was given from one person to another, but that it was cyclical and it was reciprocal. It was an ongoing process that tied us to our knowledge systems and our ancestors going back for thousands of years. And so I think there's a lot of really amazing nuance to how our language thinks about learning. And I'm really excited that I get to be on that learning journey too, as I'm learning the language. But one of the things I love about my language is that it is very interactive and it is very much about relationships.
What a perfect way to end. Can you say that name one more time?
tä.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you so much, Jess, for being with us here on RBCM at Home Kids. Thanks everyone who joined in. It was great to have you here, both whether you were a full class or individually, whether you're here in Victoria or maybe there are some people that are up closer to Bella Bella. So so nice to have you here, Jess, and be safe in the wild winds if they come back, and and yeah, until next time. So we did in the chat put a link to Jess's website, so definitely have a look at that. And then also earlier in the chat, a link to the book, Spirits of the Coast. So if you'd like listening to Jess, definitely you would love reading Jess too. So and next week, just for everyone to know, next week we'll be making paper cranes with Laura Minta Holland, who's a arts educator from Squamish. So thank you everyone for joining in. Thanks again, Jess. And all right, bye.